Hi, everyone. Today we have Nolan Mast from Roadmaster Active Suspension. Nolan tells us about the history of Roadmaster Active Suspension and how it was an idea that was originally created while the owners were driving on the rough roads of South Africa. The system is designed to add strength and stability to your vehicle at all times, towing or not, without needing to make any adjustments after the initial install, which, by the way, is very easy and a good project for any DIYer. Nolan also talks about how the system has changed throughout the years and how they are keeping an eye on the automotive industry for changes. So before I tell you the whole story, let's get Nolan on here and get this episode started.
Hi, Nolan. Welcome to the show. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role at Roadmaster Active Suspension?
Sure. I'm currently the lead at marketing at Roadmaster Active Suspension and been with the company for about 10 years. Coming up on 11 years in June. Originally from a small town in northeastern Ohio, was really into sports and outdoors and that type of thing. My dad was a farmer, and so that kind of led me into the direction of going into automotive and looking focusing on sports and that kind of thing. So have a background in I went to Mount Union College up in Northeast Ohio with a major in sports business. Interned with a few major league or minor league and major league teams, and so I graduated from Mount Union during that time, around 07, 08. Ended up down in Charlotte, North Carolina, interviewed with Roadmaster Active Suspension primarily because, kind of automotive industry would almost call it cousins with, the sports and outdoors type industry. So interviewed with the company, really loved the team here, small company, and the owners of the company, Clive and Andrea Shevitz, great people. And really working for a company with great people was at the top of my list, when I was interviewing with, several different companies. And so ended up working here with Roadmaster Active Suspension. They hired me on in 2010, June of 2010, to be an account management position. And so in the account management position, really, we, focusing on working with dealers and kind of working in that channel. And so over the 8 years that I was, in the account management position, really got to talk to and kind of learn from the dealers and, primarily they're mom and pop shops. They'd be, whether they're trailer dealers, hitch installers, truck specialty parts, garages, that kind of thing. So really got to kind of learn from them what they value the most. Get to learn about the product from a technical aspect. I wouldn't say that over those 8 years we had a lot of obviously there's some highly technical people here. Like Clive, for instance, he had the owner of the company had an engineering background, but I wouldn't consider, especially in the start, wouldn't consider myself to be, overtly like automotive, or super handy, that kind of thing. Don't have an ASE, certification or anything like that. But those 8 years talking to the dealers, talking to customers, in a small business like this, you're kind of doing multiple different things. So you're onboarding new dealers, but then also at the same time, you're talking to customers that might have questions. So over those 8 years, it was really cool to kind of do multiple different things. But then in 2018, I had the opportunity to, you kind of saw things shift a little bit, and we always kind of geared towards the dealer channel and kind of relying on the dealers, local mom and pop shops that didn't have any sort of distribution or anything like that. So we kind of always, relied on working with the mom and pop shops to really get them the information, educate them, and then relying on them to educate the customers. So 2018, obviously, things have been changing and evolving from a business standpoint, and everything being more and people getting their information, from online sources. So took that, and we didn't have anybody specializing in that in 2000 or at that time. So kind of took kind of my previous experience in what I had done before and kind of what I focused on in college, put it together with what I learned with the company over those 8 years, and I kind of turned over into leading the marketing here at Roadmaster Active Suspension. So that's where we are today.
So I just got a quick question. Do you have a truck? Do you drive a truck?
I do.
Oh, great. That's a qualification you need.
I don't know if I should say one or the other, because if I say it's one, then the Chevy folks or the Ford folks. I've got a 2017 F-150.
Okay.
It's the most popular truck on the road, number one, and then also it's the most popular vehicle that we fit. And I grew up a heavy guy. That's the thing. But I think the reason that I ended up with the Ford this time is because I had so much interaction with some of the guys on the forums with the F-150 forum and some of the other forums out there, and so they weren't always like positive things about the truck or the F-150, but I don't know. I just got to really know the truck, and so I just figured out I would get an F-150. I love the way it drives.
Well, I'm a Chevy guy and Kenny's a Ford guy, so
yeah. I do not own a truck anymore. I used to have a Ford Ranger, but that was like 15, 20 years ago. So I know trucks have changed a lot since then.
They have. Oh yeah, they're almost like SUVs now. Everybody's got one.
Oh yeah, crazy popular. When I had my truck, they were popular. I worked construction. We all had them in construction, but I think around that time is like when the general public started catching on to the idea of just how great trucks can be. They're multi-purpose vehicles. You can use them as commuters. You can use them to go out and have fun. You can use them to get work done. So I like the multi-purpose stuff of them. So you had said that you've been with them for a little while. How old is Roadmaster Active Suspension? When was the company first started?
Yeah, so the company was started in 98. So we've been in business here in the States for 23 years. So originally, it came from South Africa, or the concept at least came from South Africa. And that's where the name Roadmaster came from, is Clive and Andrea owned the business, and they had a business partnership with some folks in South Africa. And they had this concept. Concept come about because there were mail couriers that were working in the bush of South Africa that were going on some really rough roads, and were having to make their deliveries. And so they came up with this mechanically active suspension system to really improve the ride quality and the handling of those vehicles. Now, the suspension systems back then were our suspension system back then were about half the size of what we have now, because they weren't necessarily geared, and the purpose of them wasn't really to improve the load handling and kind of that, and work on some of the heavy loads. And also, those vehicles were much smaller over in South Africa. So they took that. They right around that time, they were moving to the States, and Clive and Andrea owned an Amco transmission shop. And so during that time that they owned the transmission shop, they took the opportunity to take what they had and develop and to be able to retrofit. They did some research and development. Every time they would have a Tacoma in there, an F-150 in here, or a van, or whatever it may be, all these different makes and models, they would look at it. They would look at the suspension systems and tailor the kits for that particular suspension system. So that's how they began to be able to sell the product over here in the United States, because while for instance, a Ford Ranger, there might be the same Ford Ranger or 2000, say, or a 97 Ford Ranger here in the States, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the same part, take the same part number as a 97 Ford Ranger in South Africa, because they've got different manufacturing facilities. They use different suppliers and that kind of thing. So they had to do all of that. And so they did all that, and starting around 97, 98, came out with some, they made some kits available in 98. So that's really when everything started here. And so kind of the first, and I would say 98 into the 2000s, it was their target was more, they were trying to find the right kind of niche and the right target, I think. And during that time, they were really going after it and working with a lot of the 12 and 15 passenger vans, because during that time, I mean, you would see them anywhere, everywhere, church vans, all the churches ran them for their youth groups, and so at the same time, there was a high risk of rollover because they had a higher center of gravity, the wheelbase, and then they had the overhang in the back. And so it led to a lot of instability once you load all the passengers in there. And so, they did some independent testing and some research facilities, and it really showed the benefits. To this day, there's still videos out on YouTube showing that testing on the independent research facilities, and so they showed that to Salvation Army, and they showed it to some of the primary church insurance companies out there, and that led to them recommending our product. So that's kind of how during the 2000s, that was really the kind of the meat and potatoes of the business at Roadmaster Active Suspension. But then also they began to focus on and going after a lot of the mom and pop shops, or the hitch installers, and the just specialty shops and that kind of thing. And so from there, obviously, I would say around 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, you started to see those kind of the van market kind of dwindle away as they went to different setups. And that's kind of when we started to kind of take our attention away from that market and go more towards and recognize how our product was a great fit for more your recreational type, guys that are towing and hauling half-ton trucks, 3/4-ton trucks, that kind of thing. And then also we had begun to develop kind of a positive, extremely positive reputation as the internet became more popular, and the guys that had installed our product already had they would always be vocal about how great and how much they believed in our product. Obviously, you still get a lot of people that look at it and kind of think, well, what can that really do? And so there's still that segment, but really for everybody that's tried it, and that so the internet really done great things for us during the 2010s, I think, and over the last 10 years, and so around 2012, 2013, there's still on some of the forums, you start to see a lot of chatter about our product, and the use for our product for axle wrap and wheel hop, that kind of thing. And so that kind of took another step, because once it's on there, and it's not anything that's led by us, or and obviously consumers know that, pickup truck owners know that. And so there's a lot of stuff that you can't trust on the internet, obviously, but you do your research, and you'll still find that stuff on those forums from almost 10 years ago. And so that kind of helped us also, us listening to the customers and kind of looking to see what they value the most. And it was also right around that time that we went from our older style kit and adjusted to a newer style kit to make it easier to install, and that's also kind of helped us make big strides. We've seen great, some really excellent growth over the last 2 to 3 years, especially the last 2 years. So some exciting things coming here at Roadmaster Active Suspension.
So can you just tell us, like, at a basic level, what does the Roadmaster Active Suspension do?
Yeah, sure. So we manufacture one line of springs, and so our spring works like a big muscle. It attaches to the rear leaf springs and works like a big muscle to hold those leaf springs in a nice arch position. The more weight you put on the vehicle, the more our product is going to engage with your leaf springs to keep those leaf springs from flattening out. So we kind of, the secret sauce is it's the variable rated tension coil spring that engages. So anytime as you're putting weight down on the vehicle, our product is engaging to hold that, like I said, to hold that leaf spring in a nice arch position. So instead of resisting the weight at the frame of the vehicle, like think like an airbag setup or something like that, which everybody knows about, it's been around for years and years and years. Again, our product is actually going to the source of the problem and working with the actual OEM suspension to work with that. So you get a lot of additional benefits, more kind of, I would say, significant and noticeable benefits when it comes to improving or reducing bounce, improving ride quality, improving the stability, instead of just the primary feature being, or the primary benefit being, reducing that squat. It's more about the drivability and that aspect of the driving experience, really.
So you're not removing anything off of the vehicle that you're adding the Roadmaster Active Suspension to?
That's correct. That's correct. So, you see right over my shoulder, you see, that's our kit, basically, whatever you see in black. And so it just bolts on the existing leaf springs. Typically for, I would say, probably 90% of the applications that are out there, this kit comes as a whole, fully assembled. It just bolts right on. Most of typically within about an hour to hour and a half, installation. So yeah, you're not removing anything. For nearly all applications, you're not going to remove everything or anything at all. You're just going to bolt onto the existing leaf springs.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a important factor. I think that's pretty cool that you're not replacing something. You're just adding, to me, almost that kind of strength. I like the fact that you kind of mentioned like a muscle, because I can almost picture like your arm with your elbow joint, and it's kind of just helping things along. You had mentioned a little bit ago about creating a second, maybe you used the word generation, I'm not sure, to make it easier for installations. How many different variants have you guys gone through?
Yeah, that's a great question. So originally back in 98, so we had a kind of our first generation of kits, and everything. I wasn't here, obviously, but we still have one or two of those boxes back here, and it's just crazy when you lay everything out compared to what we have now. It's just a night and day difference. The components that we used back then, while you could probably still put them together and fit it on a vehicle, they would work great, but it's not nearly what it is right now. And a lot of it has to do with the spring is actually, it was much smaller. Output was much less. But also the components, they would come in the box, not fully assembled. So you would have to assemble, just like imagine over my shoulder, you've got, it's multiple different components. So you would have to assemble all those different components. So everything was much smaller. Then that was our first generation. Second generation, we beefed up the spring. And the components, and looks like much more similar to what you see on the screen, but there was a flat plate that fit in underneath the U-bolts. So if you could imagine, for half the country, you had to remove the U-bolts. So step back. So you would have to remove the U-bolts in order to install our product, and then put the U-bolts back on. And for half the country, that created a big issue if your truck was more than 2 or 3 years old, because you live up north and you get salt on the roads and that kind of thing, and your U-bolts would be rusted out, and you'd have so you would for sure have to go to a shop, almost assuredly have to go to a shop to have this installed. So while our generation during the 2000s, the second generation kit during the 2000s was much more similar to to the results that you would see of what we use today. The installation was much more different. Then in 2000, right around the time that I started in 2000, it was started in 2010. I believe it was the following year that we came out with what you see on the screen. And so this is our third generation kit, our easy install kit. And so obviously the spring rate was the same as the previous generation, but the installation is much cleaner, much more simple, and it's going to be lend itself to obviously shops. There's still a lot. We have 700 plus dealers in the United States, but so shops can still install it, but it also makes it much easier for your pickup owner to install the kit himself without having to do any sort of special tools. And then kind of follow up with that, we've got multiple different size of springs as well. So we've got a single X spring, which fits on your like your small Tacomas, Ford Rangers, S10s, those types of vehicles. We've got a double X spring, which is our prime, I guess, used to be at least our most popular kit, and we would use on during the 2000s, like on a lot of those vans, 2010s. That we came out with this 2010s. We used a lot of the double X spring, and then 2012 we came out with a triple X heavy duty kit with the higher spring rate. So to kind of we have 3 generation of kits, which you'll see, which you can see on our website. But then on top of that, this same generation kit that we have now, we have a bigger, stronger, heavier duty kit available that was made available in 2012.
I'm curious too, Nolan. As you mentioned, like the different types of trucks. When a manufacturer comes out with a new redesign or a new truck or van or whatever that may be, how long does it take you guys to be able to come up with something to fit their new design? Or doesn't it work that way? Is normally the chassis of a truck kind of the same all across the board?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a really good question. So this year was definitely more difficult because of COVID and the manufacturers not getting the vehicles on the lot in the same manner as they did, previously. So it's really hard to get our hands on a lot of these vehicles. I think it's a Toyota Tundra. Still is not on the lots. I know you can order them. As of right now, they're I think they may be available sometime in April or end of March or April. But so it can be difficult to this year is difficult to get our hands on some. But what we found is typically we'll have parts ready and on an application list by end of the year. So say back in 2017, a lot of these trucks are on the lots end of 2017. So we have something on our application guide by end of 2017. So really, it's just going to lots of the places here that we have relationships with, and getting underneath some of these vehicles, or working with some of our dealers to get our hands on some. And there really are not a lot of step back here. Just because like a manufacturer may make a cosmetic change on the look of a vehicle, or a wholesale change on the look of a vehicle, does not always mean that there's a change when it comes to our product. So I'll just for example, this year the F-150, they were using the same suspension package for the 2021, or they were using the same package for orders that came through. Or if you went to a Ford dealer in say November of 2020 and ordered an F-150, and you got it, say, within a month. I'm not sure how long it takes to get that vehicle to you, but if you got it within a month, that suspension package was the exact same as the 2020. Everything else was the same. Or I'm sorry, everything else was a 2020 package, but the leaf springs were almost like a runoff of the previous year. Now, fast forward about a month, and they changed the leaf springs to a parabolic spring, which is completely different. A parabolic spring was a mono leaf spring. So, that kind of threw us for a loop, because nobody really had their hands on that style yet. But fortunately, even though it's a completely different leaf spring, for our kit, it was actually the same. We took the exact same kit.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so there's some funkiness to it. There's times that, kind of speaking to, I don't know if this answers the question exactly, but just kind of throwing some examples. I mean, back in 07, 08, Dodge, there were some mergers going on with Dodge and Mercedes, and we found that there were multiple different leaf spring pack setups on the Dodge 25 and 3500s. So, some of them were the shackle, within the same year, make, model. We found out there's different manufacturing facilities that these were being made at. So, we had to list different part numbers or different kits, which can kind of throw you for a loop. So, there's there can be a lot of different moving parts when it comes to, the research and development of it. But, Clive does, Clive is the owner of the company, and he's an engineer. He's an engineer by trade. He's got that engineering personality and a lot of those traits of, everything's got to be perfect and, to the T. And so from a marketing standpoint, obviously that's, sometimes there, because you want to go, but, he's that type of person, and he's kind of ingrained that with the guys, that handle that side of things now. But yeah, that's a great question.
So I can see the benefits for somebody towing a fifth wheel where they are putting a lot of weight in the bed of their truck. Is this also beneficial for somebody towing a trailer?
Yeah. I mean, somebody towing a trailer, that's probably our most popular application. And you'll see that the most probably. For instance, we've got a customer gallery on our website, and some of the most popular pictures and comments that you'll see on there that are sent to us by our customers are from guys towing trailers. And so, first thing that we try to, and anytime somebody sends a, email to us or a question to us, weight distribution hitcher is always a great way to go. So we say, definitely get a weight distribution hitch, obviously depending on the trailer. But our kit also works very well in conjunction with the weight distribution hitch. And so sometimes what happens is that guys will, especially nowadays where, the RV market is kind of exploding, and you get a lot of Gen Xers and millennials that are now, have young families, and they may not always be savvy when it comes to, having a mechanical mind or handy. So, they'll look at they've got a truck going to shop for a camper. The salesman that's selling the camper isn't always honest with, what your truck can handle. They look at the, what the sticker says that the trailer is, and then what the truck says, but that doesn't necessarily, just because your truck is rated for this amount, gross vehicle weight rating is this, or payload capacity is this, and trailers this, doesn't always mean that your truck's going to be able to handle that, or that at the very least it won't squat.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times that even after you install a weight distribution hitch, you still can't get it right. And you still experience, even after setting it up, properly, you still, a lot of guys will still either, if it's over adjusted, well, they experience a lot of sway because the weight's off the back of the truck. And so they experience a lot of sway, but then when they try to adjust it properly, they're still too much weight. Even though they're within the gross vehicle weight rating, the truck suspension can still be, the leaf springs can be soft. And so that's kind of where we come into play, is that works great, doesn't resist the frame in any way, still allows the springs to work like they're supposed to, but it just engages and a lot and gives you a lot more stability and handling, when you're loaded with that travel trailer.
Yeah, we were going to ask you about the weight distribution hitch, and do you guys work together, or are they just totally separate? So I'm glad you answered that the way you did, because it sounds like they increase the performance of each other, kind of.
Yeah. And there are times that we always recommend, if, typically somebody will have a weight distribution. The way it happens, we found the most, is that somebody will already have a weight distribution hitch on their vehicle. They're still experiencing, a bounce, a little bit too much bounce for their taste, or they're still maybe experiencing a little bit of squat. They've been through all the adjustments. And so they're still looking for more. And so they'll come to us. And so usually the weight distribution hitch is already on the vehicle. And then so we always recommend walking through that weight distribution hitch installation process once again after installing our product. And that's probably going to take longer than the installation of our product, though. So yeah, it's great. They can work really well together.
Yeah, Sean and I just actually learned a lot about weight distribution hitch from a previous guest we had, WaySafe, on, and Sean and I did not realize that the distribution hitch setup was just that, a process. Like, yeah. we didn't understand that it usually takes a trained professional to set that up for a customer, and then once they do it the one time, then they know how to do it a multiple times in the future. So I'm glad you kind of echoed what they were saying, that that is definitely a process, and that it can be wrong and everything. And I'm glad, and like Sean said, man, you answered one of our questions. Will your product work hand in hand with a distribution hitch to make it better? And my question now is, I'm going to have to reword it, because originally I was going to say... Oh,
sorry. I didn't mean to...
No. This is actually perfect, because I was going to say, by having the Roadmaster Active Suspension on the truck or vehicle, whatever that may be, does it decrease the amount of comfort? But from listening to you, I would think it's actually the opposite. It increases the comfort and the drivability of the vehicle, it sounds like.
Yeah. So that's really what kind of sets us apart. And I think that's really that's the reason that a lot of customers love our product the most. And a lot of customers don't really believe it until they actually have it on, or they kind of don't expect it. And it goes back to, the same, it goes back to 25 years ago. The reason that the product was originally designed was to improve, the ride quality and the handling, reduce bounce for vehicles that weren't necessarily loaded. So even though those springs were much lighter, you still get, now our springs are, obviously much stronger. That variable rate still is working for you when you're not loaded. So we get comment after comment. Anytime that you see, like, for instance, an ad in a on Facebook or something like that, for people that have, they'll leave comments just raving about the unloaded ride quality and the improved stability and the handling that they love, going through, like, they go through like switchbacks, or going around a curve or a corner. It feels like the truck hugs the road much better, is the best way I would have heard it. And the ride, and the way that the ride feels, is pretty distinct versus if you were to go around, and put like add a leaf or an extra leaf spring, or doing like maybe an airbag setup or something like that. And it's a good thing. And one of the things that you have to consider, or people consider as they're starting to do research about, some sort of suspension upgrade, is, the upgrade that you're putting on for 10%, for you may tow or haul 5 or 10% of the time. And so the upgrade that you're putting on for that 5 or 10% of the time that you're actually driving your vehicle, it's going to affect one way or another the other 90 to 95% of the time that you're driving your vehicle. And so that's where our strength is. And for instance, if you look at an airbag setup, yes, if you get the whole kit and caboodle with the great airbag setups, they really work. But if you're going to spend the $1,200 for everything, there's also going to be maintenance. It's not going to negatively affect unloaded ride quality when you're not loaded. But there's also, you've got to put air in, air out. There's some maintenance requirements to it. And if you go with kind of a more traditional airbag setup, or I'm sorry, more traditional overload spring type setup, there's a lot of negative. There's kind of a negative feedback a lot of times when it comes to the ride quality when you're not loaded. So those are things that people want to think about, because so many of the newer F-150s, the newer Chevy 1500s, they drive like SUVs, and so you want to be able to maintain that ride quality. And if you can get some improvement out of it, man, that's really kind of where, that's why people rave about our product, really. Obviously it works when you're, and it works extremely well when you're loaded. But it's that other 90% of the time that people end up loving our product, really.
Yeah,
I think, sorry.
Go ahead, Kenny.
I was just going to say, Nolan, I think I just had an aha moment when you were giving that answer as for the active part of that suspension. So it works when you're under load, and it works in just normal everyday use, and you're not going under there and making any adjustments to this.
That's exactly right.
You just set it up the one time, you install it, and then that's it. You're not tinkering with it anymore.
Yeah, it's like the old infomercial, set it and forget it, right? It's load and road handling, is going to be improved regardless, without no maintenance, no adjustments. And that's really the beauty of our product. So there's we get that's the thing I think that and just going back to that's what people end up raving our product about. That's what they rave about the most. Because again, a lot of times it's not expected. Sometimes they do expect it because they may see other people talking about it. But the reason that people come to us, to start typically is to eliminate the cosmetic sag that they see, or the kind of the white knuckle driving that they feel when they're towing their RV. And then they end up, yes, it's gonna make a huge difference and it's going to fix a lot of those issues. But then also, man, it works great. We get guys saying that, hey, even if I don't tow, I'm going to end up getting this for every vehicle or every truck that I own that's got leaf springs. So,
yeah, I have a Chevy 3500, and it has, I guess they're called the overload springs.
Yes.
On the top. Will the product work with that setup, or do you have to remove those overload springs?
Yeah, so great question. So our product will work on those vehicles. The overload spring has to come off. Okay. This is one of the primary, and when we say, we fit 80 to 90% of vehicles, it's a simple, easy installation. And part of the reason why our kit has become more popular most popular on F-150s, aside from the fact they're more popular just in general on the roads. But, and we really try to, and so our happiest customers, honestly are the guys with the 1/2 tons and 3/4 tons. On the higher end of the spectrum, if you're towing, if you have a 1-ton truck and you have to remove the overload spring. You're taking a step back, obviously, in terms of strength and in your suspension and payload. If you put our HD kit on, you're going to gain a little bit. You're going to gain about 15-20% over and above, in strength over and above what you had before. And that's actually the whole reason that we came out with that HD kit back in 2012 was because more and more of those 1 tons, came with that stock overload spring, and really our standard duty kit, wasn't given enough for those guys. So, to go back to your question, yeah, remove that overload, put our heavy duty kit on. It's going to give you a little bit, but really, if you're squatting with like a 1 ton truck and you've got a huge fifth wheel on it, or car hauler or something like that, we'll be honest, hey, on the high end of the spectrum right now with our product availability, you are not going to, you're going to be better served going with an airbag setup. Mm-hmm. And also with a 1 ton like that, when you pair our heavy duty kit or what we have available with a 1 ton leaf spring pack, the differences that you're going to notice in terms of what I just talked about with the ride quality and some of those other benefits are not going to be as noticeable, and it's going to be kind of diminishing returns. So, and it's, product for 95% of the market out there that's got, half ton, 3/4 ton trucks, great for us. But, if you have like I saw, Sean, I saw pictures of your, I think you might still have that truck that I think I saw maybe on the website.
Yeah.
That's like an example. You may want to go, you would want to stick possibly if you were squatting down a few inches, you probably want to go with an airbag. Now, the instance that our product would work great is if the reason that you wanted our product on that truck was just simply to get rid of excessive bounce that you're feeling.
That's what I hate about that. That's the only thing I hate about that truck is the bounce. And it's mostly unloaded driving where you feel all that. So
yep.
I guess that's the downside of having those overload springs on there, is that it causes an uncomfortable ride when you're unloaded.
Yeah, sometimes, depending on what your setup is, sometimes you might come down, that you've got that snubber in the back. Mm-hmm. And so what happens sometimes is you come down on that overload spring, and that could be part of the issue there. And so sometimes, just honestly getting rid of an overload in and of itself can help, but you wouldn't want to do that if you're towing something, obviously. Uh-huh. But you would want to, so like that would be an example of where we would recommend our product. But there's a lot of times that we have to, if we get especially, the 8 years that I was an account manager, and, if one of our dealers called up and said, hey, we've got this customer, we would talk to them, just what are they doing with the truck? What are they looking to get out of it? And, there were times that we would say, hey, you may want to go, do something else. Especially if they have a 1 ton truck and they're, maxing out, they're close to max or maxing out their truck, maybe even a little bit more on a 1 ton with overload springs, and you're going to want to do that. We'll have a short video series on our YouTube page coming out, showing the removal, what that looks like, removing the overload spring and installing our product. It'll be a 3-part short series that'll come out. We don't have a whole lot that's out there right now educating customers about removing the overload spring, and that is something that wanted to make a point of this year to come out with that stuff. So that stuff will be coming out in the next maybe out by the time that this podcast shows. So,
and I think that says a lot about your company, where you're not trying to sell stuff that people don't need, and will actually recommend another option if the product truly isn't going to work for them. So that's great. And then so we talked about travel trailers and fifth wheels, but what about like Class B vans that are, some of these have they're pretty long hangover over the rear axle, and would this be an option for them to improve their
Yeah.
capability?
So Class Bs, so one of the things that Class Bs and the manufacturers will do, obviously, they'll take the, like for instance, like Road Trek or Winnebago, they'll take like a stock Mercedes or, Ford or whatever it may be. They'll take it, do the build on it. And sometimes what we'll find is that they will, add air conditioning, plumbing lines in and underneath the leaf springs. So what's on our application guide is not, doesn't take that into account. And a lot of times, because of the way our kit sits on top of the springs, and then you've got, components that run along the sides of the U-bolts, and there's some different setups. So we're not taking that into account.
Yeah.
So we get requests for that every day, and we can't put, because there's so many different out there. There's so many different aftermarket setups on that, and going back 20 years, there's an infinite number of and there's just, it wouldn't, the cost benefit for us to put something out there for us isn't there right now. But that said, we still fit these vehicles every day, and it's just the process is a little bit different, and we may come out with some sort of more cut and dry process, like on our website, to be able to identify what your build is, and to be able to fit that a little bit more easily. So right now, if somebody contacts us and says they have this particular make model of Class B motorhome, we ask them to send us pictures, and we have a measurement set up that we ask them to fill out for us, and then they send it back to us, and then we can say whether or not we can fit it.
Okay.
So we've got like a template for that, and that allows us to identify whether or not we have the clearance necessary for our product to fit, and then which components or combination of components is going to be the stock that's on our application guide, is going to be a modification of that. So that aside, fitment aside, from a benefit standpoint, a very similar benefit to kind of going back to, back in the 2000s, you work on all those 15 passenger vans, you get, just, really significant benefits. Again, when it comes to the stability of that vehicle, not just, keeping it from, all that extra weight that's on that leaf spring, not just some of the time, but all the time, is going to lead to a lot of leaf spring wear and tear. And so our product's going to work to strengthen that, and work to, reduce a lot of that bounce, or, kind of going over, if you're going over like a lot of the ridges in the roadway, that kind of thing. So from a functionality standpoint, works great. It's just, the getting your hands on one is going to require a little bit more work on your end for us to be able to fit it.
And does that go the same for the Class Cs that are built on, say, like an E350 or E450?
So we only fit 1 ton and less right now. So like your Class Cs, is like the E450s, we're not going to be able to fit. The leaf spring packs are much, much thicker. And so you're looking at different angles of our axle connecting bracket. So as a rule right now, we don't fit like your Class Cs typically.
Okay. Yeah. I was just curious.
You
Sorry.
You used a term earlier that I'm not quite sure what it means. It's axle wrap. Can you tell us what that is, and how the Roadmaster Active Suspension helps prevent that?
Yeah, so axle wrap is typically seen on a lot of, most popular, you would probably see it on diesels that push out a lot of low end torque.
Okay.
And so it really causes the axle to kind of twist. And so the leaf springs bind up. And so the leaf springs bind up, and kind of a lot of times you get multiple different results. You get, typically it results in like a release, or like a shutter, like a sudden shutter. and loss of traction. And so traditionally, you've got traction or ladder bars that can weld to the frame or bolt to the frame to hold that axle in place. Now our product kind of almost does the opposite, to hold that leaf spring in their arch position, and to hold that leaf spring and stabilize that leaf spring to keep it from going from going into an S shape and snapping back, or from shuttering up or binding up. That's one of the things that our product is used for. A lot of guys with, for instance, drag racers. Again, as a rule, you've got to put a traction. Those guys typically will put a traction bar on to stop that from happening. But back in around 2000, I think I mentioned before, 2012, there was a lot of maybe it was 2011, 2012, right in that range. But a lot of the guys with F-150s really came to our attention on the F-150 forum. Guys were experiencing an issue similar to that, and it was related to I believe it was a driveline issue. But long story short, they came to us and were just curious if our product would work on it. We got those. We got one of the guys tried it out, and it didn't get rid of everything. Being honest, it didn't get rid of everything, but from what he was saying, 78% got rid of it. 70-80% of the axle wrap he was experiencing, and so you see it from guys that are typically from guys that are on the racetrack using it that way, but then also a lot of guys experience it that have lifted trucks, because you put a block in there. That block almost acts like a lever, and so again, a lot of guys. That's why you'll see a lot of guys running with the big old SEMA type trucks that they put the traction bars under there, or the ladder bars under there, and some guys like the look of it, but then also it's really to help with that axle wrap. And so our product helps with that. And the reason that somebody might want to go with our product versus you can run both of it at the same time if you want to go overkill, but the reason that some people may want to go with our product on that is because, yes, it's going to help get rid of that issue, but then also the other benefits that you get, especially guys with lifted trucks, you get a higher center of gravity. You might experience a little bit more sway, or I should say not necessarily sway, but body roll, a little bit more bounce. Especially, it depends on how hard you drive your truck. Also depends on where you're at. If you're in the hills or something like that. So if you're looking for more than just, yes, you want to get a product that's going to get rid of your axle wrap, but if you want a product that's also going to help you with your everyday driving, making it accelerate a little bit better, going on curves and corners better, reduce the bounce, then they may want to look at our product as an alternative to like a traditional traction bar. Or if, again, a lot of guys they that may experience that they use their truck as an everyday driver, they may also tow with it, so you're going to get that benefit at the same time. I wouldn't say that our product is going to inherently going to solve that problem any better than, say, like a traction bar, but it's what you're getting, kind of the other things, even though you may not necessarily want it or be looking for that right away, but if you're ever going to tow with your truck, you're going to be ready for it. It's going to kick in when you need it. If you want a little bit better, driving experience or going around curves and corners, bounce, that kind, then you may want to invest your money in the product. So,
for somebody that's interested in purchasing the Roadmaster Active Suspension, you had mentioned that you deal with a lot of dealers, but should they go to your website first and find out? Do you have like some type of program there that can tell them if it fits their vehicle? If it doesn't fit, does it give them like a store locator or anything like that?
Yeah, so we try to make it as easy as possible for the customer that's coming to our website to purchase the product. So whatever's most convenient for them. First thing is we've got a kit selector on our website. Go to the kit selector, enter your make, model, you can find your kit, find the kit that's right for your vehicle. We also have a dealer locator on our website that's going to just enter your zip code. It's going to find you going to find a dealer that's closest to you. Obviously, we're actively working to beef that up and make it even easier if you're looking to get the product locally. And then we also have our online resellers such as eTrailer.com sells our product. Great dealer. They've got some great videos and great content on our product. They're growing every day. And then some other online resellers like Summit Racing, and also availability on Amazon for some products. And we're looking at we're working on building availability for full line of products on Amazon as well. So, really, if you're looking, especially if you're looking to install or looking to have somebody install it for you, definitely recommend going to one of our dealers. If you're want to support local business, highly recommend going to one of our local dealers as well. And also, if you have a stock overload spring on your truck, and you don't want to mess with the U-bolts or anything like that, definitely recommend going to a local dealer. But other than that, we want to make it as easy as possible for anybody to purchase the kit and whatever is going to be most convenient for them.
Have you heard of it? Have you heard of it voiding any factory warranties or anything like that?
No. So yeah, that's one of the most common misconceptions in the aftermarket industry. Still, we still get asked it. Probably not as common as what we did a few years ago. But the FTC issued a bulletin maybe almost 10 years ago now that kind of clarified that it's illegal for dealerships or any other service center to void a warranty or deny coverage just because they use like an aftermarket product or a specialty product, which ours would fall under. They've got to demonstrate, or the responsibility is on the local on them to demonstrate that specialty or aftermarket product caused a failure or caused a particular problem. And even if they do prove that, all other products are still under warranty, or all other parts on the vehicle are still under warranty. So to our knowledge, our product has never voided any sort of warranty or anything like that. So yeah, that's still a question that we get asked every day. It's still sometimes we see comments on, thinking that's going to avoid warranty, but yeah, that's 100% false.
Yeah.
Good question, Sean. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I figured we would get asked the question as a comment on our podcast, which is why I thought maybe we should ask it up front, because I'm sure it'll come at some point.
Yeah, it's the Magnuson-Moss Act is the name, I guess, of the bill, and then there's still there's a lot of legalese and stuff like that then a layman person it's hard to interpret. So it was really helpful that they're still on SEMA's website. There's clarification around that. If you do a search for Magnuson-Moss Act on SEMA's website, I'm sure you'd be able to find it. That we still reference anytime somebody asks.
What about the warranty on the Roadmaster Active Suspension? What type of warranty do you guys provide for it?
Yeah, so we've got a 5-year warranty on the product. Up until maybe a year or two ago, it was a 2-year warranty. But just really looking at it for the amount of the amount of warranty claims that we get and how well the product holds up, there's no reason for us to not have a more robust warranty. So 5 years is really, and what we tell people is it should be on there, expected to be on there for the life that you have your vehicle. So and even at that, if there's a warranty, we're not sticklers about again, going back to, we're great, great company, great group of people, great ownership. So we're even at that, we're not sticklers about, if it's 6 years out or something were to happen like that. So, so yeah, I think it's up there close to, I think with the industry.
Thanks to Nolan for talking to us about the Roadmaster Active Suspension. It seems like an easy way to improve the ride of your tow vehicle. Like he said, set it and forget it. Low maintenance is the way to go when possible, given all of the other maintenance required when RVing. We would like to thank our sponsor, Battleborn Batteries, for making the show possible and providing great batteries for RVers and boaters. Did you know that you can tell your smart home device to play Beyond the Wheel? For example, if you have a Google Nest Hub, you can just say, "Hey Google, play Beyond the Wheel podcast." Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you in 2 weeks.